Welcome back to Common Sense. I'm Wendy Bell. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas militants launched a war on Israel and slaughtered 1,200 men, women, and children in ways I can't even let my mind consider. After Israel responded with its own attack, media outlets all around the world started to report death tolls in Gaza, almost always citing numbers from the Gaza Ministry of Health, like it was some independent, trustworthy site. The same way we believed the CDC during COVID. Problem is, the same way the CDC is controlled by Big Pharma, the Gaza Ministry of Health is controlled by Hamas. In fact, it was established by Hamas. These Ministry of Health figures, which have been repeatedly cited by major news outlets all throughout the war, have been wrong, like really wrong. But how can you influence public opinion if you don't control the facts? And how can the public ever trust you again once they find out that you've been doing that? Let's bring back our panel. Chris Arps co-hosts the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on News Talk St. Louis, 1019, 94.1 FM. Wendy Patrick hosts Today with Dr. Wendy on KCBQ Radio, The Answer in San Diego. And Brian Craig is in sunny Florida, co-hosting the Steve Kane Show with Brian Craig on True Oldies Channel 95.3 and 96.9. Guys, welcome back. Brian, how about you're up first, right? This group of international scholars, they analyzed 3 months of war fatalities. Then they examined nearly 1,400 articles from major English language newspapers and media outlets, specifically the New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, BBC, CNN, Reuters, and the Associated Press. Only 5% of the media outlets, Brian, analyzed cited fatality numbers released by the Israeli authorities. Everybody else cited data provided by Hamas. Is that lazy reporting or is that willful propaganda? What do you think?
No, that's willful propaganda. If you remember, after 9/11, the mainstream media, CNN, ordered their reporters not to wear American flags on their lapels. After 9/11 in New York City, they always side with terrorists. You know, they wouldn't let Toby Keith play his music on ABC during the Concert for America. So when Israel has their 9/11, it doesn't surprise me that the legacy media sides with the terrorist again. It's what they always do.
Yeah. Wendy, do you agree? Is this coordinated? Is this something that everybody, and everybody I just mentioned is a left-leaning media outlet, so is this surprising? Do you think it's propaganda?
I don't think it's surprising, but regarding whether or not it's propaganda, they have to really drill down and reveal their source credibility. That's what it would come down to in any other forum. That's what it comes down to in the courtroom. You can't just go in and say anything. You have to say, how do you know? Why do you know? What did you look at? And if you look at this, if we call it propaganda, then there's a very transparent effort to pick and choose your facts upon which to base those figures, those numbers. And that doesn't look good to anybody. You know, I mean, I grew up in a day and age where we really trusted the local news because we trusted the reporting and we trusted the sources upon which they did that reporting. It doesn't sound here like that's the case.
Right. I'm not so sure quoting, Gaza or quoting Hamas is a great idea. But I mean, like, Chris, isn't the media, the media trusting and reporting on death figures provided by the Gaza Ministry of Health, which is Hamas, kind of like reporting death tolls in the war in Ukraine by only using data provided by Vladimir Zelensky?
Wendy, I think there's two things at play here. I think one is the media, along with their progressive allies, were in favor of the terrorists and were blaming Israel for everything. And two, the media, of course, likes sensationalism. So they like running with stories from the Hamas-run health industry saying that 45,000 people were killed. You add into that the pictures and the photos from the terrorists on the ground showing all of the havoc from Israel's bombs that were attacking these civilian areas, that were the apartment complexes. Basically, Hamas is hiding within the civilians. They show those pictures out. You couple that with those death tolls, and it just increases and strengthens the narrative. Now we know that it is not true, and I never trusted these numbers. How in the world are you going to trust numbers from a terrorist organization who has an agenda to have as many deaths as possible to strengthen their cause?
Bing, 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 bing. There you go. You know what? And Brian, so this information about inflated death numbers, it comes from this UK-based think tank. It's called the Henry Jackson Society, right? Which determined that the Gaza death toll largely been a lie. A big lie, you guys, that likely includes 5,000 natural deaths per year. I'm talking cancer patients included. Hamas also claimed hundreds of fatalities from attacks, which turned out to be their own misfired rockets. You guys remember that. The manipulation of war is not new, Brian, but it is gross.
That's right. Well, there's an old saying, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. And I know this, Israel was attacked. It was unprovoked. They invaded Israel. They raped and murdered young girls at the music festival, murdered men, took people back as prisoners that they're still holding today over a year later. And President Trump told them, release the prisoners by Inauguration Day or there'll be all hell to pay. And President Trump doesn't play, he means it. So they better release those prisoners.
Yeah, you know, this is happening here at home too, Wendy. The website usaspending.gov. Now you guys know I have no life. This is where I'm spending my free time. They reveal that the Biden administration paid Reuters over $300 million in government contracts. 11 different Biden agencies then targeted Elon Musk's businesses. All 11 agencies paid millions of dollars to Reuters, and then Reuters wins a Pulitzer Prize for its work on Elon Musk and misconduct at his businesses. Nice payola. What do you think?
I'll tell you, a couple of thoughts come to mind. The first thing I'll say is motive matters. When you're looking at whether it's correlation or causation, as we like to say, is it a coincidence or actually were these targeted attacks, if you will, in terms of media reporting? But I'll also say that the incoming president is no stranger to litigation. He's already been suing several media outlets. And if that's any indication of a trend, then we should care. I say we broadly. Anybody who works in the media should care about facts and figures and honest reporting on both sides of the aisle. And that means no selective reporting, but also no celebrity justice. Everybody should be held accountable. And Wendy, we only do that through transparency, which is one of the reasons people watch this show.
Oh, there you go, my girl. I got to know what the heck is behind you. What is behind you, Wendy? What are those things hanging behind you?
It's beautiful decorative glasswork that I find is a very non-distracting, simple background. So thank you for noticing. Maybe Rooney Raider will pick me up and broadcast this.
I love it. It's great. So, Chris, I mean, when we think about this, you can't trust any information about war. You can't trust information about medicine. We can't trust our government. Whom do we trust?
I think who we trust, Wendy, is the people that made a big impact during this 2024 election, and that is independent journalists and podcasters like Joe Rogan. You know, one of the big takes from this last election was Kamala Harris and Donald Trump went on some of the network shows, and they may have had 2-3 million people watch those shows. But when they went on Rogan and some of the big name podcasts, 30 million plus people viewed and watched those podcasts. So I think it's just another sign that the media's trust is at near zero, and people are trusting more independent sources and listening to podcasts.
Right on. Yeah, I saw something where Elon Musk and Vivek were tweeting something out, and it got 36 million views in like 7 hours. And then you see CNN's numbers, and it's like 100,000 in a day part. And you're like, oh, my gosh. So, Brian, let me ask you this. Do you think President Trump is right to sue the Pulitzer Board after it awarded the New York Times and the Washington Post Pulitzers for their reporting on the Trump campaign's alleged connection to Russia? Like, is that what it's going to take to have to sue for awarding bogus news?
Yeah, the lawsuits are amazing because he's going to have discovery. And we're going to find out if these reporters and these outlets really have sources or do they just make up whatever they want to say and print it or broadcast it. And so far as trusting the media, I trust Newsmax, Wendy, and a lot of other people do too, a trusted source. But suing is awesome. I can't wait till he sues the pollsters and we can find out if they really poll people or just make up the numbers.
Right on. And
Great.
it sort of seems like that's what's coming out too, you guys. All right, love having you. Thank you so much.